My name is Ryan Noss. I'm a stewardship ambassador. I'm a certified public health educator. I'm a dad, and I own and operate We Grow With LLC. So over this last weekend with my kids, we had a mess, and we had to clean it up. Literally, no use crying over spilt milk type situation all over the floor. Had a beach towel nearby, cleaned up, way too much milk all over the floor. And then the question became, now what to do? It had just rained, and we've had actually over 5 inches of rain in the last week. At that point, I had several totes collecting rainwater, collecting the indigenous microbiome that's being brought to this land at this, all the right reasons. At that point, though, I now had a tote filled with rainwater and a giant beach towel sopping wet with a half a gallon of milk. What to do with that? Well, I knew that I needed to rinse that towel out, because if I just threw it into the washing machine, it would sour and be a problem. Okay, so I needed to rinse it out. At which point, I took that towel out to the tote and filled with rainwater, and I rinsed it out. And then I had a giant tote, milky, white with milk, filled with biology. Now, I've created lab before, LAB, lactic acid bacteria, utilizing lactose, milk sugars, to, refine a population. But I've never done it just in the process of cleaning up spilt milk. So now, after several days, we want to see how that culture is doing, because I can use this culture to help reestablish the disturbed early successional dirt that I'm bringing back into function and soil here on the land that I live at, I work at, or with. So the top tote was simply put on it to protect it from the sun over the last few days, creating a dark habitat. Ultraviolet light has its own consequences to it. In the process, it's been allowed for time. Didn't do anything but added a food source to help isolate a population that likes to eat that food source while working with the indigenous microorganisms that's come down in the rain. We're going to be able to take a sample of that and show you what those creatures are and what they're doing under the microscope. So I'm going to be using a pipette to pull the sample. But if in the process, so I'm going to use the pipette to pull the sample. But in the process, you'll notice that there's actually gas and bubbles coming up inside this culture. Okay, that there's also a sour smell to the culture. Sour doesn't mean bad. That sour is reflection of the facultative anaerobes that then produces sourdough, kimchi, sauerkraut. There's a lot of sour. We find that beneficial. It's also part of that fermentation process. So if we're talking about dealing with silage on large-scale agriculture for feeding to livestock, we're still talking about the fermenting microbiology, these facultative anaerobes, primarily bacilluses. We'll be able to take a look and say hi to those bacillus that were, instead of cried about with the spilt milk, are going to be utilized to create a healthy habitat. With the utilization of observation tools, microscope, stereoscope, and even the screen so that everyone can see, this is the opportunity for us to then take a look. Our sensory input, the sour smell that we smelt, that's already an indicator. The visual, the understanding of the time component. So now we'll take and prep a slide filled with the culture that we have grown. And then we will have the opportunity to look and say hello to this little labor force that we can nurture. You see there was actually a lot of material in the water. This is at 440 magnification. 4 times 10 with the eyepieces gives us our total magnification. We're not going to be able to see bacteria as individuals until we get to 400 magnification. So before we get there, we're going to go to 100. It's providing an opportunity for us to see larger material. Remember, this was rainwater as well, so depending on what that material is, it literally blew in. And then here we will shift to 400 and be able to see our bacteria. So as we look at this culture, we're able to identify different individual bacteria, focusing on the populations that are present and the ones that are being nurtured. If you can see the rod-shaped little bars, those are the bacillus. Bacillus is a facultative anaerobe that allows for fermentation. Some other little treats waiting to come out of stasis. Having observation tools allows us the opportunity to observe. As this culture changes, we're able to then see those changes. As that culture improves, we're able to track those improvements or realize where we can best utilize the culture we've created at its current state. So, wonderful opportunity to not cry about spilt milk, to put it into a use. This biology will then go out as a soil drench into the disturbed areas. Any areas that are also full of weeds, this is also an indicator those weedy species are trying to fulfill a purpose, a function in that ecosystem. We're able to increase the labor force that they're able to work with to aid in nutrient cycling, gas exchange, pH buffering, as well as increasing the biological community into what is already a disturbed ecosystem. The fact that this was created just by having a know-how so that we could utilize it then makes the whole of our land healthier. My name is Ryan Noss. I'm a stewardship ambassador. I'm a certified public health educator. I'm a dad, and I own and operate We Grow With LLC. We Grow With helps people to differentiate between fertilizer and fertility. We use products and services. We equip people with the observation tools they need, as well as the products that make their jobs easier, allowing them to turn dead dirt into living land at any scale.